everybody. I see I don't really need to introduce our next author, but for those of us who are not in the know, he has a video blog with his brother called The Brotherhood 2.0, which is hilarious. And you should immediately go home and look it up. Ladies and gentlemen, Prince Medal Award-winning author of Looking for Alaska, Abundance of Catherines, and the newest and my favorite so far, Paper Towns, John Green.
It's on now. Can you hear me now? That's too much pressure.
Do you want to move to the middle?
Be quieter. Hold on, sorry, I had to call my mom. Hold on. Hi, it's John. I'm on stage right after Peter from Peter, Paul, and Mary. I know, okay, that's all. Okay, I love you. All right, thanks. Bye. Hi. That was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. With the only other thing that's in contention being the time that I spoke right after Judy Blume. And if you know anything about me, you know that I believe deep down inside that Judy Blume is a really, really beautiful person, and not just on the inside. So my name's John Green. If you don't know me, Will, instead of like fangirly screaming, can we have a show of hands of the number of people here who would identify themselves as nerd fighters? Okay, so there's like at least 11 people who would not identify themselves as nerd fighters. So let me tell you a little bit about what that means, because you might be thinking to yourself, like, why would that guy fight nerds when he so clearly is a nerd? Why does he hate himself? I don't hate myself. Nerd fighters fight for nerds in the way that freedom fighters ostensibly fight for freedom. We are a group of people who have gotten together to sort of celebrate intellectualism and intelligence, and we believe in books and reading and other stuff that's made of awesome, and we believe in destroying things that we say are made of suck. So for instance, just recently, Nerd Fighters together, we raised money to build a pond sand filter in a small village in Bangladesh, and we're going to be rebuilding a primary school in a small village in Bangladesh in the coming weeks. And also, I promised Nerd Fighters I would give $1,000 to malaria, not for malaria, but against malaria, if they got Ashton Kutcher to follow me on Twitter. Because I thought that was funny, but then they did get Ashton Kutcher to follow me on Twitter. So, sorry, Sarah. My wife's here somewhere. She's horrified. Hey, does someone have a copy of my first book?
Looking for
Looking for Alaska. If you could just, well, no, you don't have to just hold it up, but I need one because I forgot it. That was weird. Okay, this is my first book, Looking for Alaska. I haven't read from it in a long, long time, but I thought I might read from it. Oh, you're only on page 25? Oh, so many things are yet to happen, but I will read from before then so I don't spoil it. I want to read from Looking for Alaska because I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between these two books. This is my most recent book, Paper Towns, which just came out in October, and this came out in March of 2005. Looking for Alaska is a book about a boy who memorizes the last words of famous people, and the last words of the great French poet Francois Rabelais were, "I go to seek a great perhaps." My friend Mary Tuominen is in the audience, and she actually knows a lot about French literature, and she probably knows that Francois Rabelais' last words in all likelihood were not, "I go to seek a great perhaps." They were in all likelihood something far less metaphorically resonant. But anyway, his friends wrote down that his last words were, "I go to seek a great perhaps," which are great last words. And the young man in this book, whose name is Pudge, is inspired by Francois Rabelais' last words to sort of leave his boring, safe life in Florida to attend a boarding school in Alabama, where he meets a young woman named Alaska. And I think the part that I'm going to read is when Alaska tells him about the last words of Simone Bolivar, the South American revolutionary. Bolivar's last words were, so he was in this kind of malarial stupor. I'll just read. I haven't read this book in a long time, so I apologize if it's not that good. Furthermore, I don't know where in the book I'm reading from. Amateur hour. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So Alaska sits down with him on the porch swing, and she's smoking a cigarette, which I should say, like, she does that because she's self-destructive, and that's the only reason to smoke cigarettes. And there are lots of much more socially constructive ways to be self-destructive, and I would urge you to participate in those. Like spend too much time on the internet or something. All right. So she walks up to him and says, so do you really memorize famous last words? She ran up beside me and grabbed my shoulder and pushed me back onto the porch swing. Yeah, I said, and then hesitantly I added, you want to quiz me? JFK, she said. That's obvious, I answered. Oh, is it now? She asked. No, those were his last words. Someone said, Mr. President, you can't say that Dallas doesn't love you. And then he said, that's obvious. And then he got shot. She laughed. God, that's awful. I shouldn't laugh. And then she laughed again. Okay, Mr. Famous Last Words Boy, I have one for you. She reached into her overstuffed backpack and pulled out a book. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, The General in His Labyrinth. Absolutely one of my favorites. It's about Simón Bolívar. I didn't know who Simón Bolívar was, but she didn't give me time to ask. It's a historical novel, so I don't know if this is true, but in the book, do you know what his last words are? No, you don't, but I'm about to tell you, Mr. Parting remarks. And then she lit a cigarette and sucked on it so hard for so long that I thought the entire thing might burn off in one drag. She exhaled and then read to me. He, that's Simón Bolívar, was shaken by the overwhelming revelation that the headlong race between his misfortunes and his dreams was at that moment reaching the finish line. The rest was darkness. Damn it, he sighed. How will I ever get out of this labyrinth? I knew great last words when I heard them, and I know you guys all sighed because that was so good, but I'd like to reiterate that I didn't write that. Wish I had. I knew great last words when I heard them, and I made a mental note to get a hold of the biography of that Simón Bolívar fellow. Beautiful last words, but I didn't quite understand. So what's the labyrinth? I asked her. And now is as good a time as any to say that she was beautiful. In the dark beside me, she smelled of sweat and sunshine and vanilla, and on that thin moon night, I could see little more than her silhouette, except for when she smoked, when the burning cherry of the cigarette washed her face in pale red light. Her mouth close enough to me that I could feel her breath warmer than the air, she said, that's the mystery, isn't it? Is the labyrinth living or dying? Which is he trying to escape? The world or the end of it? I think that's what I'll read from Looking for Alaska. Thanks for the book. So there we have this girl, Alaska, who's like bathed in pale red light, and on the thin moon night, all you can see is her silhouette and whatnot. And what's clearly going on there is that this boy, Pudge, is romanticizing this girl. You know, he's seeing her as sort of more than she actually is, and she has this sort of beauty about her that doesn't feel like it's available to most of us. She's awesome in a way that we don't feel like we can be awesome. If you've read the book, then you know that because of the plot of the story, that lie never really gets exposed in Looking for Alaska. Like the fact that there is no such thing as a person who is more awesome than other people never really gets laid bare. Like the fact that all human beings are essentially human in precisely the same way that we are never really gets told. So that troubled me. And not that I'm not proud of the book or that I would write it any differently, because I wouldn't, but that fact troubled me anyway, because the truth is that we are all people. There is no such thing as a person who is sort of an idea and not a person. People aren't ideas.